Imagine walking into a room, and without saying a single word, people notice you. Not because you're loud, not because you're trying, but because there's something different about you. They can't explain it. They just feel it. It's in your presence, in your calm, in the way you don't chase attention, yet somehow it comes to you. Most people think attraction is about speaking more, doing more, proving more. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if your silence is the very thing making you powerful? This is a truth deeply rooted in the teachings of Gautama Buddha, a truth most people will never understand. Because in a world full of noise, the quiet one becomes unforgettable. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why saying less is exactly what makes you stand out the most. 1. Silence reveals inner power. There are two kinds of people. One talks to prove something. The other doesn't need to. Most people are afraid of silence because in silence, they face themselves. So they keep talking, trying to impress, trying to be seen. But when you choose silence, everything changes. You stop reacting. You stop chasing approval. You stop proving your worth. And suddenly, you feel different, calmer, stronger, more in control. And people notice it. Because when you don't speak out of need, your presence becomes powerful. You don't demand attention anymore. You attract it. That's the truth Buddhism teaches. The less you try to show power, the more power you carry. And it all begins with silence. 2. Detachment creates attraction. The more you chase, the more you lose. Attention, respect, value. Most people don't realize this. They think trying harder will make them more attractive. So they chase people. They chase approval. They chase validation. But Buddhism teaches something completely different. Let go. Not because you don't care, but because you don't need. And that changes everything. When you stop chasing, your energy shifts. You're no longer desperate, no longer trying to impress, no longer afraid to lose people. And people feel that instantly. Because neediness pushes people away, but calm independence pulls them in. When you are okay alone, you become rare. When you don't cling, you become valuable. And here's the truth. The moment you stop needing someone is the moment they start noticing you more. Not because you changed for them, but because you stopped changing yourself to please them. That's the power of detachment. You don't run after attention anymore. Attention starts running toward you. 3. Calm energy is magnetic. People don't just hear you. They feel you. Most people carry restless energy. Rushed, anxious, always trying to keep up, prove something, be somewhere else. And that energy spreads. But when you become calm, you become different. You don't rush your words. You don't react instantly. You don't get pulled into every emotion around you. You stay steady. And that steadiness is rare. Buddhism teaches that a calm mind is a powerful mind because it is not controlled by chaos. When you are calm, you think clearly. You respond instead of reacting. You stay grounded while others lose control. And people feel safe around that. They trust it. They're drawn to it. Because in a world full of noise, calm feels like peace. And everyone is searching for peace, even if they don't realize it. That's why your silence becomes attractive. It carries calm energy, and calm energy is magnetic. 4. Mystery increases value. The moment you stop explaining everything, you become harder to read, and strangely, more interesting. Most people reveal too much, too quickly. They talk about everything they feel. They explain every action. They try to make sure everyone understands them, because deep down, they're afraid of being misunderstood. But Buddhism teaches something very different. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not everyone needs to understand your journey. And when you accept this, something powerful happens. You become mysterious. Now, mystery is not about pretending. It's not about playing games or hiding your personality. It's about not overexposing yourself. It's about allowing space between who you are and what others know. Because when everything is visible, Nothing feels valuable. Think about it. If someone tells you everything about themselves in one conversation, there's nothing left to discover. But when someone speaks less, reveals slowly, and chooses their words carefully, you start thinking about them more. You begin to wonder, what are they really like? What are they thinking right now? Why do they seem so different? And that curiosity creates attraction. Because the human mind is drawn to what it cannot fully understand, Buddhism emphasizes awareness in speech, to speak only what is necessary, true, and meaningful. And when you live like this, you naturally say less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand the value of silence. You no longer feel the need to fill every gap in conversation. You're comfortable letting moments pass without words. And in those moments, people start observing you more closely. They notice your expressions, your reactions, your presence. You become someone they try to figure out. And here's the deeper truth. When people can't fully figure you out, they give you more attention. Because clarity ends curiosity, but mystery sustains it. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you become intentional. You don't overshare your plans. You don't reveal your emotions instantly. You don't explain your every move. You allow things to unfold naturally. And that creates a quiet tension, a space where people lean in instead of pulling away. Most people are used to noise, constant updates, constant talking, constant explanation. So when they encounter someone who is different, someone who doesn't reveal everything, it disrupts their expectations. And that disruption grabs attention. But there's something even deeper happening beneath the surface. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you stop seeking approval. You're no longer trying to make sure people like you. You're no longer adjusting your words to be accepted. You simply exist as you are. And that authenticity is powerful, because people can sense when someone is not performing, when someone is not trying to win them over. And that makes your presence feel real, unforced, grounded. This is where mystery becomes more than just attraction. It becomes respect. People respect what they cannot easily access. They respect what is not given freely to everyone. And when you combine silence with self-awareness, you create a presence that feels rare, not loud, not obvious, but unforgettable. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to impress people with words. Your restraint does the work for you. Your silence becomes a filter, revealing less, but meaning more. And the more you embrace this, the more people start to feel something they can't quite explain. They notice you, even when you're not speaking. They think about you, even when you're not there. Because you've created something most people never do. A presence that invites curiosity, instead of demanding attention. And in a world where everyone is trying to be seen, the one who holds back becomes the one everyone looks at. 5. You stop seeking validation. Most people don't speak to express themselves. They speak to be accepted. Every word, every joke, every opinion, carefully shaped to get approval, to be liked, to fit in, to avoid rejection. And without realizing it, they slowly lose themselves. Because the more you chase validation, the more you depend on others to feel worthy. Buddhism exposes this clearly. It teaches that the root of suffering is attachment, and one of the deepest attachments is the need for approval, the need to be seen as important, the need to be liked, the need to be enough in someone else's eyes. So people perform. They agree when they don't mean it. They laugh when they don't feel it. They speak just to fill silence, afraid that quiet will make them invisible. But when you begin to embrace silence, something shifts. You stop performing. You stop adjusting your personality just to fit the moment. You stop chasing reactions from others. And for the first time, you start feeling real. Because silence forces you to face a question most people avoid. If no one is watching, who am I? At first, this question is uncomfortable. There's no audience, no applause, no feedback, just you. And in that space, the ego begins to weaken. That constant voice asking, do they like me? Did I say the right thing? What do they think about me? it starts to fade. Not all at once, but slowly. Because the more you sit in silence, the more you realize something powerful. You don't need constant approval to exist. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need to be liked by everyone. And that realization is freedom. Because when you are no longer controlled by validation, you become stable. You're not shaken by opinions. You're not desperate for attention. You're not trying to prove your worth in every interaction. And people feel that. They notice that you're not trying to impress them, that you're not seeking their approval. And instead of pushing them away, it pulls them in. Because there is something deeply attractive about someone who is already enough within themselves. Think about it. When someone is constantly seeking approval, it feels heavy. You can sense the neediness, the pressure, the effort. But when someone is calm, grounded, and not trying to be liked, it feels different. It feels easy. It feels real. Because they're not trying to get something from you. They're simply being themselves. And that authenticity creates trust. Buddhism teaches that the ego is always hungry. Hungry for praise. Hungry for attention. Hungry for validation. And no matter how much it gets, it's never satisfied. But silence starves the ego. Because when you're not constantly speaking, you're not constantly feeding that need for approval. You begin to observe it instead. You notice when you want to say something just to be liked. You catch yourself before you speak just to impress. And in that awareness, you gain control. You start choosing truth over approval. And that changes everything. Your words become fewer, but more honest. Your presence becomes quieter, but more powerful. You stop trying to win people over, and instead, you let them come to you. Because here's the truth most people never understand. The moment you stop seeking validation, you become someone others want validation from. Your energy shifts from needing to being, from chasing to attracting, from proving to simply existing with confidence. And that is rare. In a world full of people trying to be liked, the one who doesn't need it becomes unforgettable. 6. You observe more than others. Most people think power comes from speaking, but real power comes from seeing. While others are busy talking, explaining, reacting, you are watching. And that changes everything. Because when you stop filling every moment with words, you create space. Space to notice things others completely miss. The shift is subtle at first. You start catching small details. The pause before someone answers. The way their tone changes when they're unsure. The difference between what they say and what they actually feel. Before, you were part of the noise. Now, you're outside of it. And from that position, you begin to understand people in a deeper way. Buddhism teaches awareness, not just of your own mind, but of everything around you. To observe without rushing to judge. To see without immediately reacting. And when you practice this, your perception sharpens. You stop taking words at face value. You start reading energy. You notice when someone is confident and when they're pretending. You notice when someone is happy and when they're hiding something. And the more you observe, the more accurate your understanding becomes. This gives you something most people don't have: clarity. While others react based on assumptions, you respond based on awareness. And that makes you different, because you're not easily fooled, not easily manipulated, not easily pulled into emotional chaos. You see patterns, you see intentions, you see truth beneath the surface. And people can feel that, even if they don't understand it. There's something about you that makes them more aware of themselves. Because when someone knows they are being truly seen, they become more careful, more honest, more conscious. Your silence creates that effect. You don't interrupt. You don't rush to speak. You listen. And real listening is rare. Most people don't listen to understand. They listen to respond. They're already thinking about what to say next, while the other person is still talking. But you're different. You're present, fully there. And when someone feels truly heard, they feel valued. That alone makes your presence powerful. But there's something even deeper happening. The more you observe others, the more you understand yourself. You start noticing your own reactions, your own triggers, your own patterns. You see how your mind wants to interrupt, judge, or react. And instead of acting on it, you pause. That pause becomes your strength, because in that pause, you have a choice to react or to stay in control. And over time, this builds a quiet discipline, a mental sharpness. You're no longer moving blindly through conversations. You're aware of what's happening in real time, and that awareness changes your presence. You become more precise, more intentional, more grounded. You don't waste words. You don't waste energy. And people notice that. They feel that you're not just hearing them, you're understanding them. And that creates a connection most people never experience. Because being truly seen and understood is something everyone craves. But very few people know how to give. Your silence allows you to give that, without effort, without trying, just by being present. And here's the truth. The more you observe, the less you need to prove. Because when you understand people deeply, you stop seeking their approval. You see their fears, their insecurities, their need for validation. And instead of being influenced by it, you rise above it. You remain steady, focused, aware. And that creates a powerful contrast. While others are lost in reaction, you are grounded in awareness. While others are trying to be seen, you are the one who sees. And that position is powerful. Because in the end, the one who understands more naturally leads, not by force, not by words, but by presence. A presence built on awareness, a presence shaped by silence, and a mind that sees what others cannot. 7. Emotional control becomes visible. Most people don't lose because of lack of talent. They lose because they lose control. One moment of anger, one emotional reaction, one impulsive reply, and everything changes. That's how fragile most people are. They are controlled by what they feel in the moment. If someone disrespects them, they react. If something doesn't go their way, they break. If emotions rise, they follow. But Buddhism teaches something deeper. You are not your emotions. They come, they rise, they pass. But most people never learn to watch them. They become them. And that's where they lose their power. Because when your emotions control you, anyone can control you. All it takes is the right trigger, the right words, the right situation, and suddenly you're no longer in charge. But when you practice silence, you slow this down. You create a gap, a small moment between what you feel and what you do. At first it's difficult. The anger still comes. The frustration still rises. The urge to react feels strong. But instead of acting instantly, you pause. And that pause is everything. Because in that pause, you see the emotion clearly. You notice it building inside you. You feel its intensity, but you don't let it take over. You stay still. And the more you do this, the stronger you become. Because emotional control is not about suppressing feelings. It's about not being ruled by them. You still feel anger, but you don't explode. You still feel pressure, but you don't break. You still feel emotions, but you remain steady. And over time, this becomes visible. People start noticing something different about you. You don't react like others. You don't get pulled into drama. You don't lose control under pressure. And that creates a powerful image. Because in a world where people are easily triggered, the one who stays calm stands out. They begin to see you as strong, not because you're loud, not because you dominate, but because you remain in control when others cannot. Think about it. Anyone can stay calm when everything is going well. But when things go wrong, that's when true character is revealed. That's when most people collapse into emotion. But you don't. You stay grounded. And that kind of control is rare. Because it takes discipline. It takes awareness. It takes the ability to sit with discomfort without escaping it. Buddhism trains this. It teaches you to observe emotions like passing clouds. They appear, they move, they disappear. And when you truly understand this, you stop fearing them. You stop reacting to every feeling as if it's permanent. You realize, this will pass. And that realization gives you power, because now you don't need to act on every impulse. You can wait. You can choose. And choice is control. The more you practice this, the more stable you become. Your energy doesn't fluctuate wildly. Your mood doesn't depend on others. Your reactions don't define you. You become consistent. And consistency builds trust. People feel that you are reliable, that you are not unpredictable, that you won't suddenly change based on emotions. And that creates a quiet respect. Because emotional control is not just attractive, it's powerful. It shows maturity, discipline, self-mastery. And here's the deeper truth. When you control your emotions, you control your life. Because your decisions are no longer driven by impulse. They are guided by awareness. And awareness leads to better choices, stronger actions, clearer thinking. So while others are reacting, you are responding. While others are overwhelmed, you are steady. While others are controlled by emotion, you are in control of yourself. And that difference is not small. It's everything. Because in the end, the person who masters their emotions becomes someone the world cannot shake. 8. Your words become rare and powerful. Most people talk too much. They speak without thinking. They fill every silence. They say things just to be heard. And because of that, their words lose value. When everything is said, nothing feels important. But when you embrace silence, something changes. You start speaking less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand the weight of words. Buddhism teaches right speech, to speak only what is true, necessary, and meaningful. And when you live by this, your words become rare. You don't interrupt conversations just to add something. You don't speak to impress. You don't react instantly with opinions. You wait. You listen. You think. And then, when you finally speak, people listen because they're not used to hearing you talk all the time. There's a pause, a shift in attention, because when someone who is usually silent speaks, it feels important. Think about it. In a group of loud voices, no one stands out. Everyone is talking. Everyone is trying to be heard. But the quiet one, the one who observes more than they speak, when they finally say something, the room changes. People turn their heads. They focus. Because they know, if this person is speaking, it must matter. That's the power of restraint. When you stop wasting words, every word gains weight. And weight creates impact. You no longer need long explanations. You don't need to convince people with endless talking. A few clear words, delivered with calm, become more powerful than 1,000 rushed ones. Because it's not about how much you say, it's about how deeply it lands. And depth comes from intention. When you are silent, you begin to understand your thoughts better. You notice what is worth saying and what is not. You stop speaking just to release emotion. You stop speaking just to fill space. You speak with purpose, and purpose is felt. People can sense when words come from clarity instead of impulse. They can feel when someone is speaking from awareness instead of ego, and that makes your voice different. It becomes calm, measured, grounded, not rushed, not desperate, not seeking approval. And that changes how people respond to you. They take you seriously. They respect your words because you don't throw them away. Most people weaken their own voice by overusing it. They say too much, too often, without meaning. So when it matters, no one listens. But you're different. You hold your words. You choose them carefully. And when you speak, it feels intentional. This also protects you. Because the more you talk, the more chances you have to say something you don't mean, to react emotionally, to reveal too much, to lose control. But silence gives you space. Space to think. Space to choose. Space to stay in control. And that control keeps your words clean, precise, powerful. There is another layer to this. When you speak less, people reveal more. Because they fill the silence. They talk about themselves. They share their thoughts. They expose their emotions. And you learn. You understand. Without saying much, you gain insight. And that insight becomes your advantage. Because you know more than you show. And that creates a quiet authority. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to prove intelligence through constant speaking. Your presence does the work. Your silence creates space. And your words, when they come, carry impact. This is what Buddhism teaches. Speech should not be frequent. It should be meaningful, because words are not just sounds. They carry energy. And when used carelessly, that energy weakens. But when used with awareness, it becomes powerful. So you begin to shift from talking more to saying less, from reacting quickly to responding with intention, from trying to be heard to being worth listening to. And over time, people begin to notice something. When you speak, it matters. And that is rare, because in a world full of noise, the one who speaks with purpose becomes the one everyone remembers. 9. Inner peace reflects outward beauty. Most people try to become attractive from the outside. Better clothes, better style, better words, better image. They focus on how they look, how they sound, how they appear to others. But no matter how much they improve the outside, something still feels off. Because attraction doesn't start on the outside. It starts within. Buddhism teaches a truth most people ignore. Your outer presence is a reflection of your inner state. If your mind is restless, your energy feels restless. If your mind is anxious, your presence feels anxious. If your mind is chaotic, people feel that chaos. You don't need to say anything. People can sense it. In the way you move, in the way you look at them, in the way you respond. Energy always reveals what words try to hide. And this is why so many people struggle. They try to look confident while feeling insecure. They try to appear calm while feeling anxious. They try to seem attractive while feeling empty inside. And others feel that contradiction because no matter how well you perform, your inner state leaks through. But when you begin to cultivate inner peace, everything changes. Not instantly, not overnight, but slowly, deeply, permanently. At first, it begins with awareness. You start noticing how busy your mind is. Constant thoughts, constant worries, constant comparaison. You realize that most of your energy is scattered, pulled in different directions, and that's exhausting. So you begin to slow down. You spend time in silence. You observe your thoughts. You stop reacting to everything, and little by little, your mind starts to settle. The noise doesn't disappear completely, but it becomes quieter, less aggressive, less controlling. You begin to feel space inside your own mind. And in that space, peace begins to grow. This peace is not excitement. It's not loud happiness. It's something deeper, a calm, steady feeling that doesn't depend on what's happening around you. And this is where your presence begins to transform. Because when your mind is peaceful, your body follows. Your movements slow down. Your face relaxes. Your eyes become softer, clearer. There is no tension in your expression, no pressure to impress, no hidden anxiety behind your smile. And people notice this immediately because it feels different. Most people carry tension without realizing it. Tension in their face, tension in their voice, tension in their energy. Even when they smile, something feels forced. But when you are truly at peace, nothing is forced. You don't try to look calm, you are calm. And that authenticity changes everything. Your presence becomes soothing, comfortable, easy to be around. People don't feel judged. They don't feel pressure. They feel relaxed. And that is incredibly attractive. Because in a world full of stress, anxiety, and constant pressure, peace feels like relief. And everyone is searching for relief, even if they don't realize it. This is why people are drawn to you. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because your energy gives them something they lack: stillness, calm, balance. And here's something deeper most people never understand. When you are at peace with yourself, you stop needing others to complete you. You're not looking for someone to fix your emotions. You're not seeking constant attention to feel okay. You are already okay. And that independence changes your entire dynamic with people. You're not needy. You're not clingy. You're not afraid of losing someone, because your peace doesn't depend on them. And that creates a powerful shift. Instead of holding on tightly, you allow space. Instead of chasing, you let things come naturally. Instead of forcing connections, you let them grow. And this makes your relationships healthier, deeper, more real. Because they're not built on need, they're built on choice. And choice is attractive. Because it means you're there, because you want to be, not because you have to be. There is also something else that happens when you cultivate inner peace. You become less reactive. Situations that once disturbed you no longer affect you the same way. Criticism doesn't shake you as much. Rejection doesn't break you. Delays and problems don't frustrate you like before. Because your mind is not constantly searching for control, it accepts, it observes, it adapts, and that emotional stability becomes visible. People notice that you don't get overwhelmed easily, that you stay grounded, even when things go wrong. And this creates trust, because others feel that you are stable, that you are not unpredictable, that you can handle life without collapsing under pressure. And stability is deeply attractive. But the most powerful transformation happens quietly. It's not in how others see you, it's in how you experience yourself. When you are at peace, you stop fighting your own mind. You stop overthinking every situation. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop worrying about what people think of you. You simply exist as you are. And that simplicity brings clarity. You know who you are. You know what matters. You know what to ignore. And this clarity reflects outward, in your decisions, in your boundaries, in your presence. You no longer look for validation. You no longer try to be someone else. You become fully aligned with yourself. And that alignment is powerful because there is no confusion in your energy, no contradiction, no inner conflict leaking through. You are whole. And when someone is whole, they naturally stand out, not because they're trying to, but because most people are fragmented, pulled in different directions, trying to be different versions of themselves for different people. But you're not. You're the same, everywhere. And that consistency builds a quiet confidence, not loud, not arrogant, just steady, real, grounded. This is the kind of beauty Buddhism speaks about. Not surface-level beauty, not something created through effort or performance, but something that emerges naturally when the mind is at peace. A beauty that doesn't fade quickly, because it's not based on appearance. It's based on presence. And presence grows stronger over time. So while others are trying to become more attractive by changing how they look, you are becoming attractive by changing how you feel inside. And that difference is everything. Because external beauty can attract attention, but inner peace creates a connection people don't want to lose. And that is the highest form of attraction. Not being seen, but being felt. Not being admired, but being remembered. And it all begins with one thing, a peaceful mind that reflects outward without trying. 10. You stop reacting to everything. Most people live their entire lives in reaction mode. Every comment, every opinion, every situation pulls them in different directions. Someone says something they don't like, and instantly they respond. Something doesn't go their way, and frustration takes over. A small inconvenience turns into a big emotional shift. Without realizing it, they are not in control of their life, everything around them is. Buddhism teaches a completely different way of living. It teaches that not everything deserves your reaction. Not every situation needs your energy. Not every word spoken to you requires a response. And when you truly understand this, something powerful begins to happen inside you. At first, it feels unnatural. You're used to responding quickly. You're used to defending yourself, explaining yourself, reacting to everything that touches your ego. But when you begin to practice silence and awareness, you start noticing something. Most reactions are unnecessary. Most of the things you feel the urge to respond to don't actually matter. You begin to see how much of your energy was being wasted. Arguments that led nowhere, opinions that changed nothing, emotional reactions that only drained you. You realize that reacting to everything doesn't make you strong, it makes you predictable. And predictability is weakness. Because if someone knows exactly how you will react, they can control you. They can trigger you, provoke you, pull you into their emotional world. But when you stop reacting automatically, that control disappears. You create space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where your power lives. In that space, you have a choice. You can react like before quickly, emotionally, impulsively, or you can pause, observe, and decide whether this situation even deserves your attention. And more often than not, you realize it doesn't. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you ignore everything or let people walk over you. It means you become selective. You choose what deserves your energy and what doesn't. You respond with intention, not impulse. And that changes the way people see you. When someone tries to provoke you and you don't react, it confuses them. When someone expects an emotional response and you remain calm, it shifts the dynamic. They realize they cannot control you the way they control others. This creates a quiet authority. You're no longer pulled into every conversation. You don't feel the need to win every argument. You don't waste time proving yourself to people who are not willing to understand you. Instead, you stay grounded. You listen more. You speak less. You respond only when it matters. And because of that, your responses carry more weight. There is something deeply powerful about a person who does not react easily. It signals strength. It shows discipline. It reflects a mind that is not easily disturbed. And in a world where people are constantly triggered, constantly reacting, constantly overwhelmed, this level of control stands out. Buddhism explains this through awareness. When you are aware of your thoughts and emotions, you are no longer controlled by them. You can watch anger rise without becoming angry. You can notice frustration without letting it take over. You can feel the urge to react and choose not to. That choice is everything, because your life is shaped by your actions, and your actions are shaped by your reactions. So when you gain control over your reactions, you gain control over your direction. Think about how many problems in life are created by unnecessary reactions. Words spoken in anger that cannot be taken back. Decisions made in frustration that lead to regret. Relationships damaged because of a moment of emotional impulse. Most of these situations could have been avoided with one simple thing, a pause. Silence gives you that pause. It slows you down. It separates you from the immediate need to respond. It allows you to see clearly instead of reacting blindly. And when you see clearly, you make better decisions. Over time, this becomes your nature. You no longer feel the need to jump into every situation. You don't get pulled into drama. You don't get affected by every opinion. You understand that people will think what they want, say what they want, act how they want, and none of it has to control you. This creates a deep sense of stability. You become someone who is not easily shaken, not easily influenced, not easily distracted. And that stability is rare, because most people are constantly changing based on what's happening around them. Their mood shifts, their energy shifts, their behavior shifts, but you remain consistent. Calm in chaos, still in noise, focused in distraction. And people notice that. They feel that you are different, that you don't react like everyone else, that you don't get pulled into negativity, that you maintain control even when situations become intense. This creates respect. Not the kind that is forced or demanded, but the kind that is felt naturally, because people understand, even if they don't say it, that you are not someone who can be easily controlled. And that makes your presence powerful. But the greatest benefit is not how others see you. It's how you experience your own life. When you stop reacting to everything, your mind becomes quieter. There is less noise, less conflict, less unnecessary stress. You are not constantly replaying situations, overthinking conversations, or worrying about what others said or did. You become free. Free from the need to respond to everything. Free from the pressure to defend yourself constantly. Free from the emotional roller coaster that most people live in every day. And in that freedom, you find clarity. You start focusing on what actually matters. Your growth, your peace, your purpose. You stop wasting energy on things that don't add value to your life. And that is where your power expands. Because energy is limited, and where you choose to spend it determines the quality of your life. When you stop reacting to everything, you conserve your energy. You direct it toward things that build you instead of things that drain you. This is not weakness. This is mastery. It takes strength to stay calm when provoked. It takes discipline to remain silent when you feel like reacting. It takes awareness to choose your response instead of following your impulse. And that strength changes everything. You begin to move through life with intention. You are no longer dragged by situations. You are no longer controlled by emotions. You are no longer reacting to the world, you are navigating it. And that is a completely different way of living. A quieter way, a stronger way, a more powerful way. Because in the end, the person who reacts to everything loses control, but the person who chooses when to respond controls their life. And that control is what makes you stand out. Not because you say more, not because you do more, but because you are no longer controlled by everything around you. You have stepped out of reaction and into awareness. And that is where true power begins. 11. You become comfortable being alone. Most people are not afraid of being alone. They are afraid of what they will feel when they are alone. The silence, the absence of distraction, the lack of constant interaction, it exposes something they spend their lives trying to avoid. It exposes the relationship they have with themselves. So they stay busy. They surround themselves with noise, with people, with endless activity. Not always because they enjoy it, but because it keeps them from facing that quiet space within. Because in that space, there are unanswered questions, unprocessed emotions, and a sense of emptiness they don't know how to handle. Buddhism looks directly at this fear and offers a different path. It teaches that solitude is not something to escape, but something to understand. Because the moment you become comfortable being alone is the moment you stop depending on the world to complete you. At first, being alone feels heavy. There is no one to talk to, no one to distract you, no external stimulation to keep your mind occupied. You begin to notice how restless your thoughts are, how quickly your mind jumps from one idea to another, how uncomfortable stillness can be. This is the stage where most people run away. They reach for their phone, for entertainment, for conversation, anything to avoid staying in that silence. But if you stay, if you resist the urge to escape, something begins to shift. You start observing your thoughts instead of being overwhelmed by them. You notice patterns, worries that repeat, insecurities that surface, memories that come and go. And instead of reacting to them, you simply watch. This is where awareness begins. Buddhism teaches that your mind is not something to be feared, but something to be understood. And solitude gives you the perfect environment to do that. Without distraction, you begin to see clearly. You understand what drives you, what disturbs you, what gives you peace. Over time, the discomfort fades. The silence that once felt heavy begins to feel calm. The emptiness that once felt threatening begins to feel spacious. You realize that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness comes from dependence. It comes from the belief that you need others to feel complete. But when you start building a relationship with yourself, that belief weakens. You begin to enjoy your own company. You don't need constant conversation to feel okay. You don't need validation from others to feel valued. You don't need to be surrounded by people to feel alive. And this changes your entire presence. Because when you are comfortable alone, you no longer approach people from a place of need. You are not looking for someone to fill a gap inside you. You are not seeking constant attention or reassurance. You are already whole. And that is rare. Most interactions between people are driven by need. One person wants attention, the other wants validation. One person fears being alone, the other fears being rejected. These hidden needs create tension, pressure, and imbalance. But when you are comfortable alone, that tension disappears. You interact with people because you choose to, not because you need to. You can walk away from situations that don't align with you without feeling loss. You can enjoy someone's presence without becoming dependent on it. This creates a sense of freedom, and people feel that freedom when they are around you. There is no pressure to impress you, no expectation that they must act a certain way to keep your attention. Your presence feels calm, open, and unforced. And that is deeply attractive. Because most people are used to interactions filled with hidden expectations. They are used to people wanting something from them: approval, attention, validation. But when they encounter someone who simply exists without needing anything, it feels different. It feels real. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the source of suffering, and much of that attachment comes from the fear of being alone. People hold on to relationships, situations, and identities not because they bring peace, but because they fear what they would feel without them. But when you become comfortable in solitude, that fear dissolves. You no longer cling to people out of insecurity. You no longer stay in situations that drain you just to avoid being alone. You make choices based on clarity, not fear. And this gives you strength. A quiet, stable strength that does not depend on external conditions. You can be in a crowded room and still feel centered. You can be by yourself and still feel complete. Your state is no longer determined by who is around you or what is happening outside. It comes from within. This inner stability is what makes you stand out. Because most people are constantly adjusting themselves based on their environment. They act differently depending on who they are with. They change their behavior to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid rejection. But when you are comfortable being alone, you don't need to adjust yourself to be accepted. You remain the same. And that consistency builds a powerful presence. People trust what is consistent. They respect what is stable, and they are drawn to what feels real. There is also a deeper transformation that happens in solitude. You begin to understand your own value, not based on what others say about you, not based on how much attention you receive, but based on your own awareness of who you are. You stop measuring yourself against others. You stop comparing your life, your progress, your worth. You become focused on your own path. And this removes a huge amount of mental noise, because comparison is exhausting. It constantly pulls your attention outward, making you feel either superior or inferior. But when you are grounded in yourself, that cycle breaks. You are no longer competing. You are simply growing. And that growth becomes your focus. You invest time in understanding yourself, improving yourself, building your inner world. And as your inner world becomes stronger, your outer presence naturally follows. You don't need to announce your growth. People see it. In your calmness, in your confidence, in the way you carry yourself. And because this confidence is not dependent on others, it does not disappear when you are alone. It remains. This is the kind of confidence most people try to achieve through external means, through status, through attention, through approval. But those forms of confidence are fragile. They depend on conditions that can change at any moment. But the confidence that comes from being comfortable alone is different. It is stable. It does not need reinforcement. It does not fade in silence. It grows in silence. And this is why solitude becomes powerful. Not because you isolate yourself from the world, but because you free yourself from dependence on it. You can engage with people without losing yourself. You can enjoy relationships without becoming attached to them. You can walk away when necessary without feeling empty. And that freedom creates a presence that is calm, grounded, and strong. People feel that you are not easily shaken, that you are not desperate for connection, that you are not trying to hold on to anyone, and instead of pushing them away, it draws them closer, because there is something deeply attractive about someone who is complete on their own, not closed off, not distant, but self-sufficient, someone who chooses connection instead of needing it. That choice changes everything, because when you are chosen, it feels different than when you are needed. Choice comes from abundance, need comes from lack, and people can feel the difference. So when you become comfortable being alone, you don't lose connection with others. You improve it, because your relationships are no longer based on fear, insecurity, or dependence. They are based on clarity, respect, and genuine interest. And that creates deeper, more meaningful connections. But more importantly, it creates a deeper connection with yourself. And that is where everything begins. Because the person who is comfortable alone is never truly alone. They carry their peace with them, and that peace becomes their strength. A strength that does not demand attention, but naturally attracts it. 12. You radiate presence, not noise. Most people spend their lives trying to be noticed. They speak louder. They try harder. They chase attention in every possible way. They believe that the more visible they are, the more valuable they become. So they fill every space with words. They try to dominate conversations. They constantly seek reactions from others. But deep down, this creates the opposite effect. Because when someone is always trying to be seen, it feels forced. It feels like effort. And people can sense that effort. Buddhism teaches something very different. It teaches that true presence is not created by noise, but by awareness. It is not about how much you say or how much attention you demand. It is about how deeply you exist in the moment. When you begin to practice silence, observation, and inner control, something subtle starts to change. You stop trying to stand out, and yet you begin to stand out more. Not because you are louder, but because you are more present. Presence is difficult to explain, but easy to feel. It is the difference between someone who is physically there, but mentally somewhere else, and someone who is fully aware, fully engaged, fully grounded in the moment. Most people are distracted. Even while talking, their mind is elsewhere, thinking about what to say next, worrying about how they are being perceived, planning, judging, reacting. They are not truly present, and because of that, their energy feels scattered. But when you cultivate awareness through silence, your attention sharpens. You are no longer lost in constant thought. You are here, fully, and that changes your entire energy. Your movements become more intentional. Your eye contact becomes deeper. Your responses become more precise. You are not rushing. You are not forcing. You are simply there. And that being there is powerful, because presence is rare. People are used to being half heard, half seen, half understood. So when they encounter someone who is fully present, it feels different. It feels like they are being truly noticed. And that creates a strong connection. Without effort, without trying, just through awareness. This is why your silence becomes magnetic. Because it removes distraction, it removes the need to perform. It allows your true presence to come forward. And when presence comes forward, noise disappears. You no longer feel the need to speak just to fill space. You don't interrupt moments of silence. You allow them. And in those moments, something powerful happens. People become more aware of you. Not because you are demanding attention, but because your stillness draws it. There is a calm intensity in someone who is fully present. Not aggressive, not overwhelming, but steady, grounded, real. And that reality is attractive. Because it is rare, most people are constantly trying to create an image. They adjust themselves based on who they are with. They speak differently, act differently, behave differently depending on the situation. But when you are rooted in presence, you don't shift like that. You remain consistent. Because you are not focused on how you appear. You are focused on simply being. And that authenticity is felt immediately. People sense that you are not pretending, not performing, not trying to impress. And that creates trust. Because what they see is what you are. There is no hidden agenda, no need for validation, just presence. Buddhism calls this mindfulness the ability to be fully aware without being carried away by thoughts or emotions. And when you develop this, your energy changes. You become less reactive, less distracted, less influenced by external noise. Instead, you become centered. And that centeredness is powerful, because it means your state is not controlled by what's happening around you. You carry your own stability, your own calm, your own awareness. And people feel that. They notice that you are not easily shaken, that you don't get lost in chaos, that you remain grounded, even when everything around you is not. This creates a silent respect, because presence signals strength, not the loud, aggressive kind of strength, but the quiet, unshakable kind, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that doesn't seek attention, but naturally receives it. And this is where everything comes together. All the lessons before this, silence, detachment, calm energy, emotional control, awareness, independence, they all lead here, to presence. Because presence is the result of mastering yourself. When your mind is not constantly chasing thoughts, you are present. When your emotions are not controlling your reactions, you are present. When you are not seeking validation or attention, you are present. And when you are present, you become powerful, not in a way that demands attention, but in a way that naturally attracts it. People start to notice you without knowing why. They feel something different in your energy, a calmness, a depth, a steadiness, and they are drawn to it because it feels real. It feels grounded. It feels like something they are missing. This is why you don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You don't need to say the most. You don't need to prove anything. Your presence does the work for you. Your silence becomes your strength. Your awareness becomes your influence. And your energy becomes your message. A message that doesn't need words to be understood. A message that is felt. And that is the highest level of attraction. Not forcing attention. Not chasing approval. But simply being so present, so grounded, so real, that people cannot ignore you. Because in a world full of noise, you became something rare. You became presence. And presence speaks louder than anything else. So if you've been quieter lately, more distant, more focused on yourself, don't mistake it for losing something. You're not losing people. You're not becoming weak. You're not falling behind. You're evolving. While the world is getting louder, you're becoming calmer. While others are chasing attention, you're building presence. While most people are reacting, you're learning control. And that shift is rare. Not everyone will understand it. Some will think you've changed. Some will feel uncomfortable around your silence. Some will try to pull you back into noise. But stay where you are, because this path is different. It's not about proving yourself to the world. It's about mastering yourself within it. And when you do that, you don't need to chase attention anymore. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You don't need to speak just to be heard. Your presence does it for you. People will feel it, even if they can't explain it. They'll notice you, even when you say nothing. They'll respect you, even when you don't demand it. They'll be drawn to you, without knowing why. Because the truth is simple. The less you try to be seen, the more impossible you are to ignore. So embrace the silence. Stay grounded. Stay aware. Stay in control. Because what you're building is something most people never reach. A quiet power, a real presence, and a level of attraction that doesn't need words.